Honestly, one of the things adults struggle with the most is understanding the difference between saving and investing. And so when you're teaching your kids about money, if you're using those terms interchangeably, it's hard for them to conceptualize that they're different. Even like now, we started at 3 years old, like saving and investing are different. They're for different things. And we
Yeah.
really intentionally talk about that. Like, I will not have a child that grows up to be confused about the difference between saving and investing. All right, guys. So today we have Dee Komaromi. She is a CPA and she's the founder of Kids Money Academy, where they help educate people how to raise millionaire kids with generous hearts, which I love that mission. She teaches parents to invest for their kids and build long-term wealth intentionally. She helps families normalize conversations at home about money, investing, education, and uses her signature money chit-chat conversation cards to get it done. So, Dee, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, let's kick off with, first off, why do you do what you do? Why is building wealth for kids something that's a passion point for you?
Oh, you are going hard right away. I love that. I started Kids Money Academy about 5 years ago. I'm an immigrant. So I came to this country when I was about 23. I'm originally from Turkey. I grew up in Istanbul. And when I came to this country, I quickly realized not only I need to learn the language of the country, English, but also I need to learn the language of money if I want to be successful here in the United States as an immigrant. Fast forward, I got my CPA license. I had a really good career and I had my kids. And I quickly realized that this is something I need to teach my kids. And then I was looking for different resources and noticed that nobody else was really focusing on this topic. There are a lot of accounts on Instagram everywhere for adults, for personal finance, but not for kids. So that's how I kind of started my business. And I told myself, if I fail in this business, at least my kids are going to grow up to be financial literate. So even my worst case scenario was good. So that's how I started my business.
I love it. And how old are your kids now?
Now they are 8 and 13. I cannot believe I have a teen in the house.
Oh my
Super
gosh.
excited because, it's different challenges. It's a different adventure that we are on now with my teen. I'm actually excited to have resources for teens because so far I only focused on ages 6 through 10. Now that my son is teen, I'm like, okay, what can I create for teens? So that's on my plate.
I love it. I'm in a different life season with you kids wise. My oldest is 4 and my youngest is not even 1 yet. And so we have yet to teach him anything about money. But my oldest, we've already started kind of working through some systems to really strategically teach her about like money lessons. And it's been fun, honestly, to watch the process. But I will agree with you, there are not a lot of resources out there. And the ones that are out there tend to be very focused on like how to tell your kids whether something's in the budget. And not that that's bad, but that's not necessarily the skill that's going to allow them to go out and build wealth as an adult.
Exactly. The spending is important as saving. That's why we need to teach the saving, spending, generosity, giving, and also investing. Investing how you build wealth. And I think you covered that very well. But yeah, so they need to learn all 4 of that. They need to be rich in pocket and rich in heart,
I completely agree with you. And I do think, honestly, one of the things adults struggle with the most is understanding the difference between saving and investing. And so when you're teaching your kids about money, if you're using those terms interchangeably, it's hard for them to conceptualize that they're different. And so even like now, we started at 3 years old, like saving and investing are different. They're for different things. And we really intentionally talk about that. Like, I will not have a child that grows up to be confused about the difference between saving and investing.
Yes, absolutely. That's why having an allowance system where you practice that muscle every week is very important. Not once a month, not every other week, every week they need to practice that investing muscle, saving muscle, giving muscle, and spending muscle. I see a lot of systems out there. They're like, oh, we're having our monthly money meeting with our kids. Well, monthly really doesn't teach anything to them. I think you have to practice it. Consistency is way more important than like what you teach in that monthly meeting, you know?
Yes, I agree completely. Of our system, we have one piece that's monthly, and I actually kind of stole the concept from you. You had mentioned like a goal tracker that you use with investing over time. So I literally made one of those. I had it printed in this little poster, and she has her goals on there that we're investing towards. And so we do update that monthly, but everything else, like you said, like the practice of segmenting into those 4 categories, dividing money, talking about how we want to divide that money, that has to happen weekly. And it's hard. Like as parents, it's super busy. Life is chaotic, but it's such an important life skill that squeezing in those extra few minutes just once a week to make it happen. That's a really valid like muscle, like you said, that you're building for your kids.
Yeah, and the good news is once you start do it a couple of times with them, they know. They're not gonna need you. Like this is one area, we manage everything for our kids. We tell them when to eat, what to eat, when to go to school, what to wear, everything. If you think about it, we manage for them. And this is one area that you can teach and you can let them do their thing. You don't have to manage it for them. They will be empowered by doing it by themselves. So I will highly, highly encourage people to check out my allowance course and ask me questions and check out my Instagram because I do explain the whole system there, and ask me any follow-up questions if they have. It has to be easy. We are all busy. We are working moms, working dads. There are a lot of competing priorities, and this is not a thing you want to spend more than a minute.
This is true. This is true. I appreciate that. Well, one thing I definitely want to get to with you is the idea of college funding, because your knowledge of 529 utilization is really robust. And I know it's a key thing that a lot of parents have considered and maybe have implemented on a small scale. But let's talk about first kind of like big picture. What are your overall thoughts on funding college? And then we can talk through the actual strategies.
Yeah, the landscape is changing, right? So we don't know the future of college education. And here we are trying to, if you just had a baby, you're trying to plan 20 years ahead while, the AI, everything else is happening. It's very hard to plan. Even when I think about, I know the interests of my kids. My son, now he's 13. Now we're thinking more about the college, the things that he wants to do. It's hard to imagine if he's gonna go to college route or not, or some other path maybe will be open to them. We don't know what we don't know. I would say keep saving for education, but stay flexible overall. Nowadays, skills are more important than getting a degree, So real life experiences. If you have a chance, sign your kid up for a maybe entrepreneurship program to see, build that muscle a little bit. And definitely stay on path for saving education, because you are going to use that money regardless on one way or other, but stay flexible for what the type of education they may get and end up with. That's what I would say.
I like that answer. I struggle with this. I sit on a kind of a weird fence personally, where most of the people that I know that are genuinely wealthy, not like high income, high socioeconomic status people that just work a lot, but like people that are actually wealthy, built all of their wealth using absolutely no advanced degrees whatsoever, and instead learned the art and the skill of value creation. Where in the world of medicine that I sit in, there's this sort of totem pole where your degree delineates your income. And the idea, I think, for a lot of medical professionals of their kids not going to college seems like preposterous. In general, I think like most of us in the medical world totally underestimate how much AI is going to disrupt everything, healthcare included. And so we're kind of heads in the sand a little bit at this point. And I think the overarching assumption for most medical professionals is, of course, my kid will go to college and probably graduate school because that's what I did and that led to my success. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But it's this weird
evolving.
juxtaposition because if you want to pay for all of college, it's so daggone expensive. You really need to start when your kids are early. But then it's so hard to know 20 years in advance, like you said, well, what will that landscape actually look like?
You're going to spend that money regardless. Let me break it for you. But yeah, it's evolving and we don't know what we don't know. We can sit down and make all these predictions, and a few years from now we'll look back and we'll laugh at ourselves, you know. So we're
Yes.
it's evolving fast.
Let's just address the fear out of the gate. What happens if someone funds a 529 really well and then their kiddo decides not to go to college? What are their options for that money?
Yeah, they have so many options. I mean, worst comes worst, you pay 10% penalty and then you take out your money. But even to before we get to that point, they have so many options. The biggest opportunity is the change that happened in 2024, I believe. The new law, you know, 35,000 up to $35,000 lifetime limit, you can transfer into your child's Roth IRA. So you are literally kicking off your child's retirement plan if you start contributing when they were born. The other way is, you know, you can use the money for K-12 education. And now I believe with the big beautiful bill, BBB, now you can use it for tutoring, other education related expenses. So door really wide open for that. Before it was not possible. There were a lot of limitations. If you have the funds, you can transfer to siblings, you can transfer the beneficiary to yourself, and as I said, worst comes to worst, you can take out the money and just pay the penalty on that. So your money is not going to be wasted in any means.
So if you've decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and open a 529 and start funding one for my kid, where would you go about doing that? And how do you know if you should use like your state plan, for example, or go to like Vanguard?
Yeah, that's a great question. First thing first, I want everyone to know that you don't need to open a 529 plan in the state that you reside. So you can open a 529 plan anywhere. So I live in California and I opened the 529 plan for my kids in Utah, and they can use the funds in New York. So it doesn't matter where you open the 529 plan, you'll be able to take the money and spend it somewhere else. So that's very important, because I myself, I know when I was like researching this, starting out with my own kids, I thought I could only open it because I live in California. My options were only California plans, but that's not the reality. So every state has its own 529 plans, and you know, there are different criteria that you can look at. You can look at the investing options, you can look at the fees, you can look at the user friendly, even the portal for the 529 plan. You can look at the state, if you get a state tax break, if you start with your own state, you can look all of that. But we all know, like, if you have more than one account, so California may have two different accounts, you know, the state itself. So comparing all of this by yourself, it's a very overwhelming task. So people usually go with their own brokerage, whatever they are offering, or they go, oh, I'm not going to spend this time, and they go with their own state plan. My suggestion is there are third parties who do compare these plans every year, and they set a standard. And based on that, there is one called Morningstar. They rate the plans every year, year after year, based on different criterias. And they share in their research, they share the criterias. And usually it's the fees, and then it's the return on investment year after year. They compare these different plans and they tell you, they categorize them in different brackets. I think there's the gold, silver, bronze, and there's the negative rating ones. So what I like to do for myself, I check that list every year, and whatever is on the gold, that's where I would open if I was a new parent opening an account, because they've done all the research for you and they are independent third party doing this research, and I would go with that. So my kids' plans are with Utah. I believe they've been in the gold category for a year after the last 5 years or 10 years, something like that. And we had no issues. And of course, I'm not recommending anything to anybody to invest in. All I'm going to say is you don't have to go with your own state plan. If you want to go, check what their rating is. You don't probably want to go, less than silver rated plan. And then you did mention the state tax break. Always compare like what that tax break is versus how much you would make more if you were to go with the gold rated plan. So if my state is giving me $200 tax break, but their funds are not performing well, you'll probably in the long run, you're going to make more than the $200 if you go with the higher rated plan. Now for me, it was easy because in California, there's no tax break for the state plan. So it was easier to go with whatever is the best in the rating.
Yeah, I think in states where there is like very minimal or no tax benefit, it is really prudent to go by ratings and to see what low-cost funds available and things like that. Indiana, where I live, they actually offer over $1,000 tax credit. So not even a deduction, a tax credit for 529 contributions. And so that's actually a really large tax perk. And I'm fortunate that they also have, amongst other options, access to low-cost index funds within the state plan. And so it is kind of a best of both worlds situation.
Illinois is also one of the ones that are gold rated.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh.
We're lucky. But I would say, double check your state tax benefit first and make sure that you don't have a really nice offer on the table before you elect to just go with an alternative state or even just like opening an account at a major custodian too.
Yeah. Another tip is you don't have to have one, 529 plan. You can have two 529 plans for the same child. So, and take that tax credit, plus you can open another one in another state.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I have my way of doing this. I'm curious if you have a way that you like to project what college costs are going to look like so that you have an end goal for your 529 funding.
Yeah, right now, I think historically, what I've been reading is like 5 to 7%. And the rates, they say that it's slowed down, so it's about 5%. That's how I calculate it. But even better than that, just like the comparing all of the states' plans, it's a hard job, right? There are these brokerage firms, they offer free calculators. You can literally put the amount that you are putting in every month and then adjust the age, because some people started when their child was born. Some starts when they're like 5, 6, 10 years old. So depending on how much you're in the market, the money you need to save every year is going to change. But the end goal, these calculators also have the, estimate for the public school, in-state, out-of-state, private school. So instead of you trying to calculate yourself, I would just go one of those calculators, and I can send you a link. You can put it in the show notes if you like, and just do it that way. That would be my recommendation. But I'm curious, what is your way of calculating?
It's similar. I like Vanguard. They have a college cost projector tool, and you can input how many years until your kid goes to college, and then if you want to assume in-state, out-of-state, private, and then if you want just tuition or tuition with room and board. And it will give you a projected cost. But of course, the big variable is like, what do you put in for the annual rate of tuition increase? Because like you had said, we saw like a decade-long period where college tuition increases massively outpaced inflation otherwise, like the CPI. And so I had historically always been going like 7%, like you said, and then I had a season where I dropped to 5%. But even more recently, the average increase in college tuition has been even less than that. And we are seeing universities doing some funky things. Like there's several in Indiana that are on tuition freezes and have been for years. And then now we're seeing schools like Harvard come out and implement these kind of robust systems for substantially reduced tuition for people that qualify from an income standpoint with not very low income requirements. And so I have personally had a hard time because what I felt like in the past was a really solid prediction. Now I feel like maybe it's not so solid. Maybe there's some variability in my plan because when I plug in a 0% tuition increase versus a 5% annual tuition increase from now until my kid goes to college, it's like $100,000 difference in the projected cost.
Yeah, just like we don't know how the college is gonna look like in 18 years, for the cost of the college, we are also guessing.
Yeah, you are
We're
right.
doing,
I do think like you need an educated guess though. I do think you
yes.
need an end goal, but we all have to recognize that that's what it is. It's an educated guess.
Yeah, and then a lot of parents, they think that they are saving enough, but when they put the numbers in that calculator, they're shocked. So reality hits, right? So I think using that calculator, regardless, is very important to see where you're even at, and just kind of have a reality check. I mean, your family may not afford $500 a month to put in your child's education, and that's okay, because you come first. We always say the oxygen mask rule.
Yes.
Put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then your child, so you take care of your retirement first. But then having a realistic expectation, okay, yeah, I'm putting $50 a month, and this is what would get me close to, and maybe at the time of the college, then I'm going to, like, on top of what I already saved, I'm going to figure out other ways to compensate for the rest of the cost, the scholarships, financial aid, or the other type of, student loans, which I definitely don't recommend, but some don't have options,
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the option.
That
So
is.
that's the reality. So you
Yeah.
don't have to necessarily, don't put your own retirement to risk to save for
Yep.
your child's education.
I agree. It is, as a parent, I think there's such like an emotional aspect attached to it that sometimes it's really hard to just think about the math. But you're right. There are no loans to feed yourself when you're 85. There are student loans. And so like you do have to prioritize that. But then personally, my own opinion is that there is really only one wrong way to do this. I do not think that you need to pay for your kids' education. I think you could pay for 0 and you could be totally in the right there. You could pay for 100% and you could be totally in the right. The only thing I think is wrong is to set your kid up where there's this mismatch in expectations, and you've led them to believe, oh, your college is paid for, but you haven't run any of the numbers. You don't even know the cost, and you actually haven't prepared for it. That's like, in my mind, the only way to go about it wrong. You're like, paying for this is a privilege and a luxury. Not everyone wants to do it or can do it. And like, there is absolutely no shame in that. But if your kid needs to get scholarships or grants, the earlier they know that, the better, because some of these big scholarship programs, they actually start in middle school. So if
Yeah.
your kid goes to like their senior year, they have no idea that they need scholarships until like fall semester. It's like, oh shoot, I could have been doing a lot of legwork leading up to this.
Yeah, my son is in middle school, and I already signed up for a scholarship program course.
Of course you did.
Just to educate myself, like what is coming my way. Because again, I didn't grow up in this education system. So luckily my husband, born and raised here, went to UCLA, went through all that student loans, all of that stuff. So he has more knowledge than I do, but I need that extra education, especially finding scholarships and grants, because I am not sure if we will be able to pay 100% of our kids' education due to the reasons that you mentioned. But I want to gather all of the other resources so we are ready when the time comes. Now, right now, we are thinking about, my son is 13, as I said, and 16, he's going to get his first car. So that's what we are saving for. We just took that off.
There you go. Well, at least you're planning ahead on that, because a lot of folks, I think, look up at the 16th birthday and go, oh, what are we going to do about this? Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah, for that also there are a lot of options, right? Your child can do summer jobs and contribute to the car. You can pay 100%, or they can pay 100%, or you can do, the portion of it you pay, portion of it they pay. I didn't think about that too hard yet. I just want the funds to be ready when the time comes, because car prices are skyrocketing too,
Like everything, right? Well, one thing I do want to talk about, because we've talked through 529s and what that can look like, but also the fact that, it's really hard to predict if your kid will go to school, and if they do, what costs will be. So if you want to invest for your kids and you're nervous about locking everything into the 529 path, let's walk through some of the other modalities available, some of the other options, and kind of when you might think of one over another.
Yes, definitely. So nowadays we have a lot of options, and you don't have to go in, just like you said, in the one account. I would highly recommend thinking through your goals for the money and deciding which account to go with. So let's talk about the options we have first. So we have the UTMA, UGMA account. We have the 529 plans, and then we have the UTMA, UGMA accounts. They are basically brokerage accounts for kids. They are custodial investment accounts. And we have the custodial Roth IRA, which is the retirement account for kids. And then we have the Trump accounts. I like to call it T accounts. Because the way everything is nowadays, when some people, when they hear the Trump accounts, they may feel certain way, and I beg them to differ, like, please just think as a T account, not a Trump account. Don't focus on the name, and just focus on what the account does. So going forward, we can call it T account if you want.
Okay, so let's go through some of these options. We personally, I will say, use all of the above. Haven't opened the Trump account yet because the online portal won't be here till July, but have done all the rest just for that diversification in purpose of the money. So where do you want to go first? You want to start with UTMA, UGMA account?
Sure. So UTMA, UGMA accounts, I'll tell you how we use in my family UTMA, UGMA accounts. So I use this type of account as a sandbox, investing sandbox for kids. We don't put thousands of our dollars of our own money. So because it is count as a student assets on FAFSA, your earnings are taxable, and you may run into something called kiddie tax with the earnings. We want to avoid all of that. We want to simplify it. So we use the UTMA, UGMA account as a sandbox where our kids learn how to invest. So both of our kids have UTMA accounts with Fidelity, just because we have all of our accounts there. We're not affiliated or anything. And it was easy to open, and then they can buy fractional shares, and there's no minimum. So what happens is, every week when my kids get their allowance, my daughter is 8, she gets $8. My son is 13, he gets now $13 per week. They split their money into save, spend, give, and investment. As long as they put $1.50, something in each jar, we are letting them do whatever they want with the money. So I asked them, okay, how much do you want? By the way, we don't have an investment jar, because investment money goes directly into their UTMA account, but they know, and they've seen the account, it exists. They do see me transferring the money. So there is that visual thing there. So if my daughter wants to invest $2 into UTMA account, so her allowance is 8, she's like, oh, mommy, I want to invest $2 this week. We take that money and now we put it in a low index fund. Now, the fun part is, and my kids know this, $2, we match it 100%. So when I transfer it, I transfer as $4. And they're like, I double my money. So they're already so motivated by investing. Yeah. They want to invest because they are going to double their money, and they're going to, over time. Sometimes we lay down on the bed and my daughter says, Mommy, I wanna see how my investments are doing. And then we look up the Fidelity, and then she has, believe it or not, I mean, we've been doing this for a couple of years. So she's putting $2, $1 every week, right? She has over $700 in her investing accounts. And then my son has over like $1,000. Those little things add up. But even more important than, obviously, like $1,000, $700 is not a lot of money. But for them, it's a lot. And they are now, I don't even ask, like, how much do you want to invest in your investment account when I give the allowance? They're like 10%. They're just like,
Wow.
automatically.
Yeah.
They don't even think about it, and I think that's setting them up for future, and I want every child to experience this. That's my vision, that's my goal.
I love that you have made it so exciting for them. We do something similar in a little bit more of a visual way because my daughter's younger.
Yeah.
And so, like, she does have the invest jar. That money does get invested into her UTMA as well. We treat it very much like you said, kind of like a sandbox. It's where, like, if she gets, like, grandma gives her $10 at her birthday or whatever, it goes in there type of a thing, too. Same thing. We're buying fractional shares of ETFs. And it's something where she sees the money go in the jar and then we take it out. I remove it kind of like from sight, and then we are logged on to the computer, to the custodian, and we're investing together. And it is exciting to like see her kind of conceptualize the different utilizations of money and recognize that like this is a part of her future. She's identified now, which I think is pretty impressive for 4, that one of our investing goals is college, and that like, for example, she wants to be an archaeologist, that archaeologists go to college, and so she's investing towards her goal. Like, she's put that together, which I'm like, just that process of understanding like this is a really long-term thing. We need more than simple savings, and we're going to make consistent contributions each week. Like, that's a big life lesson for kids to recognize for college, because adults have to recognize the same thing for retirement, right? It's just different longer time horizon, but the same principle applies.
Yeah, and there are studies show that the kids, when they see their parents are investing for their education, they're likely to go to college. So
Oh,
there's
interesting. Okay.
so
And
the
we hope maybe there's
visual.
some gratitude. Right? Let's do custodial Roth IRAs next,
Yes.
because that's like, let's be real, that's my favorite account by a landslide, but there are some pretty big limitations to when you can utilize it. So I'll let you take it away on that.
Sure. So custodial Roth IRA, the biggest thing is not everyone can open the custodial Roth IRA because your child must have earned income. When I say earn income in IRS definition, it's they need to make money one way or other. Not allow. We're not talking about the allowance here. They need to either work in your business, or they need to have like entrepreneurial, their own venture, entrepreneurial business idea, and they make money through that, or they can work for somebody else, right? When we say somebody else, there are a lot of child labor restrictions in place, state and federal level. So right. I believe 15 or 16, some states 14, they can go out and work for a McDonald's, grocery store, this and that. So there are a lot of restrictions when it comes to that, but the main thing is they must have earned income. So a lot of families, if they don't have a business and if their child is not entrepreneurial, the earliest they can open their custodial Roth IRA when their child first starts their first job. But I don't want people to discourage, because even that is super early. 14, 15 is still so early to open a custodial. Still, they have plenty of time to grow the money. Think about yourself or myself. I immigrated here when I was 23. By the time I put together my life, I said, I made it. Okay, now I'm going to open a retirement account. I was 28. It took me about 5 years to get right. my stuff together. So I was 28. If your child is starting at 14, they are so ahead of so many people. So I don't want parents to feel bad if they don't have a business. But if you do have a business, and I know you hired your kids already, are they both on the payroll or just one of them right now?
Oh, they both are. My second one was just out of the womb and he was on the payroll. I'm doing his I-9 and stuff. It's so powerful. That's the thing that's so powerful. The tax benefits and all those decades to build tax-free wealth. It's just such an exciting opportunity. And like you said, for a little, you do have to typically have a business and have a way to hire your kid that's going to be compliant with child safety, child labor laws. But a lot of medical professionals do have a business. You don't have to you don't have to own a practice, right? It can be a small side hustle business. You can still practice medicine full time, and you can be in a position where you have a side business that you don't have to earn a ton, just enough to pay your kid $100 a month. It makes such a difference in their lives. And so this, for me,
you don't have to have an LLC.
Right.
You can have a sole proprietorship and still hire your kids. One thing though, as you know, does require quite a bit of paperwork. First year it's kind of harder than the rest of the years, just because you are setting it up the first time, you're learning things as you go. But after you set up first time, you know what to do year after year, it becomes easier. Some states are more flexible for parents hiring their kids there in their own business, versus some are stricter. In California, I mean, because we have the entertainment industry here, there are a lot of also laws and regulations statewide, like how you can use your child as a model, the things that you need to do and things like that. So just make sure if you are hiring your kids in your business, you are compliant with all of the state and federal. Now, if you end up doing everything right and hire your kids, you can have up to the standard deduction, pay your child tax-free up to the standard deduction for that year. In 2026, I think it's 16,100. That's the amount. But yeah, it changes every year, standard deduction. But that's a tax-free money. And you are basically shifting income within your tax bracket. So that's, and if you have 3 child, 3 times 16,000, just put it in the perspective.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
You take all that money, you shift that what you would have paid tax on, and honestly, likely what you would have paid even higher FICA taxes on if it's self-employed income. You take it, you shift it out of your tax bracket, you put it into this tax situation for your kids where it's tax-free under the standard deduction. Then now they have an earned income. Then now you invest it in a custodial Roth. Like for me, I invest 100% of my kids' earnings in a custodial Roth. I'm like, y'all don't need clothes right now. They can come from the consignment shop. You need a Roth IRA that's well funded. So it all goes in there, right? And like that compounds over decades. So it's a really cool strategy if you're willing to do a little bit of work. And let's be real, the compliance is annoying. It's an administrative headache. But, if you're a parent, you're up at 2 a.m. with fevers, you get snot on your clothes, you get puked on. We wear all those things with a smile. I will also wear the administrative burden of all this paperwork with a smile because I do think it's really that valuable.
I love that. I love that comparison. That's so true. 2 more points. Your child must have a real job, right? So in your business, they need to have a real job. You cannot just make up a job in your business. Right. It has to be a real job. There needs to be a job description. There needs to be, you need to log the hours and the amount you pay and everything. And the second thing is the money you pay to your child has to be reasonable. If your child is modeling for your business, modeling is more subjective, I guess. But let's say if they are doing filing for your business, like let's say they put the papers in the paper shredder and organizing your office and things like that, cleaning. You don't want to give like $100 an hour for that task. It has to be reasonable. It has to pass the IRS sniff test. It's the people who worked at IRS, the IRS auditors are also human. I'm sure they are going to start using AI. It's going to be even harder to do some of these things. They are going to be like stricter, but it has to pass the human test. Even if let's say you are audited, if you are confident that you did everything right and you hire your child, it's a legitimately you're hiring and they are working in your business, there's nothing to be afraid of. Right. But if you are doing other fishy stuff, then that's when you get yourself in trouble, and we don't recommend it.
Absolutely. Got to have the whole paper trail, all the ducks in a row, but it's worth it. Now, last account we haven't talked about, I do want to make sure we get to, is the Trump account. So do you want to give us a little bit on what that looks like?
Sure. So
or the T account, whatever.
T accounts they are a retirement account, investment account for kids. Okay, they are in between, I would like to say, UTMA, UGMA account and Custodial Roth IRA. So one thing several months ago when this first announced, I didn't know. I thought it was only for kids was born in 2025 through 2028. Then I realized maybe you guys were also thinking the same way. I thought that's for those kids. Oh, I don't have a newborn. I don't have to think about the T accounts. But the reality is anyone under 18 can open Trump accounts. Okay, so the only difference is the baby is born between January, I think it's the January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2028, they are going to also get $1,000 in their account to start investing is the seed amount. So, which is, I think it's great. The good thing about them is you don't actually choose the investments in the account. It's already predetermined. US companies only, I believe, and it's a mix of companies. So think as like index funds for US companies only and low cost. So they are already predetermined. So when you invest the money into that type of account, they are going to be automatically invested in that kind of fund. Now, it will be available, this type of account will be available starting from, I believe, July 5th. 2026, and I want to give you guys a website. It's called trumpaccounts.gov/forms. That's the website you go in and you sign up for this type of account. There is a contribution limit, is $5,000, and after your child turns 18, the account rolls over to them and they become the owner of the account, and it turns into a traditional retirement account. Taxation, it does differ. So that part is still evolving, the tracking of the taxation, this type of account, because some part of it will be tax free, but some part will be taxed, depends on who's the one contributing. So that part is still evolving. So I wouldn't make any statement on that. But yeah, I'm actually excited for this. Another venue for parents to invest for their kids, grandparents to transfer wealth. So I'm excited. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think the more you're aware of the different options, the more you can take advantage if you happen to qualify for seed money. I mean, why would you not, right? Have the free gift for your child. But I think the more you understand these different account structures, the more you can kind of choose what is in the most alignment with your family. And the more you know, like, what the different accounts can be used for, who has control of them and when and how that shifts, the more you know your kids, right? You can figure out, like, what's going to serve them the best and allow them to have a leg up in life, but also maybe have some safeguards and allow you to guide them as their frontal lobes continue to develop so that hopefully the money can have the biggest impact. So I think the Trump account can be a part of that.
Yes.
I still favor the custodial Roth IRA over it. But I have a child in that window, and I'll definitely be utilizing the account when it's available to open on the online portal with the seed funds that were promised. So it's an exciting thing to know about if you're a parent, and the more you know, again, the more you can use these things to help your kids.
Yeah, and then one last thing to add, every child can only have one T account. So you cannot have multiple Trump accounts for one child. So once you open it, now you have that account for that child. Not anybody can open for this type of for this type of account. You have to be either the parent, guardian. You get the first right, and then if the parent or the guardian, they don't want to open it, the adult sibling can open for their sibling, and then the third in the line is the grandparents. So all of these parties needs to say, no, we're not opening a Trump account. Then the grandparents can open.
I did not know that. That is a really cool little pearl. So if you happen to have anybody in your life whose parents are not considering this, you could always toss this podcast over to the grandparents and see if that's something they would be willing to help facilitate. Wow, very cool. Very cool. Well, Dee, this has been awesome. If people want to know how they can learn more from you, what is the best place to find you?
My main place is Instagram. Come find me there at Instagram, Kids Money Academy. Come say hi. I'm always happy to chat in DMs and be a resource for your listeners.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time. I know this was super valuable, and we appreciate all your expertise.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.